Hey there, and welcome. Today we're diving into the amazing world of woodworking. It's this incredible craft that's part art, part engineering, and all about taking one of nature's oldest materials and turning it into something beautiful and useful.
And just so you know, everything we're about to get into today, from the types of wood to the tools you use, is based on the fantastic and thorough work put together by Dr. Sema Tofik.
All right, let's get right into it. Every single woodworking project, I don't care if it's a tiny box or a massive dining table, it all starts with one thing: choosing the right wood. Seriously, understanding your material is the absolute soul of the craft.
So, where does wood come from? It sounds like a super basic question, doesn't it? But the answer is actually the first and maybe most important decision a woodworker makes. All the lumber we use falls into one of two big categories of trees. And trust me, they are worlds apart.
So on one side, you've got your softwoods. These come from conifers, trees with needles and cones, like pine, fir, or cedar. Then, on the other side, you have your hardwoods. These come from the broadleaf trees that lose their leaves in the fall, like oak, maple, or a beautiful piece of walnut.
Okay, but what does that actually mean for your project? Well, this is where it gets interesting. Softwoods, they're usually lighter, they grow fast, and they're pretty easy to work with. But they're not as strong. Hardwoods are the exact opposite. They're dense, heavy, super strong, and they can be a bit tougher to work with, but man, they are durable. That's why you build a frame of a house with pine, but you build an heirloom table with oak.
So you've got the tree, but how in the world does that turn into the perfect boards you buy at the lumberyard? Let's follow that journey from a rough log all the way to the usable timber that a woodworker actually starts with.
And it all begins right here, with the log. This is literally the trunk of the tree after it's been cut down. Bark and all, totally unprocessed. This is ground zero for every piece of wood you've ever seen.
From that log, one of the first things a mill will do is cut it into what's called a balk, basically a big, roughly squared-off beam. It just makes it easier to handle. And from that balk, it gets sliced and diced into more refined shapes, like the plank, which is probably what you picture when you think of a piece of lumber.
And the possibilities don't stop there, not by a long shot. That same log can be turned into a board, a thin batten, a round pole, or even a paper-thin layer of veneer that's used to cover other materials. Each shape has its own unique purpose.
Now we're getting to the good stuff. Once you have all your perfectly cut pieces of lumber, the real magic starts to happen. You have to join them together. This is where the engineering side of woodworking really shines.
Of course, in any modern workshop, we have some awesome shortcuts for making strong connections fast. The two most common are, of course, nails and wood screws. I mean, they're everywhere for a reason. They work, and they work really well for a ton of different jobs.
But if you're building something that you want to last for generations, something where the connection itself is part of the beauty, then nothing, and I mean nothing, beats traditional wood joinery. This is the ancient art of shaping the wood itself so the pieces lock together perfectly.
And the sheer variety of joints is just mind-blowing. It's not just one or two types. We're talking hundreds. You have simple lap joints where pieces just overlap, all the way to these incredibly complex and beautiful dovetail joints that are famous for their interlocking strength. Each one is like a unique puzzle piece designed for a very specific job.
Let's just break down one of the most famous and strongest joints out there, the mortise and tenon. The idea is so simple it's genius. In one piece of wood, you cut a square hole. That's the mortise. On the other piece, you cut a tongue that fits perfectly inside that hole. That's the tenon. When they come together, it's not just held by glue. It's a physical, mechanical lock that has been holding furniture together for literally centuries.
Okay, so you've got your wood, and you know how you want to join it. Now for the fun part. What tools do you actually use to make it all happen? Let's take a look at the essentials that turn a plan into a real, physical object.
It all starts with being precise. You've heard the old saying, measure twice, cut once, right? Well, that's where a tool like a marking gauge comes in. It scores a perfect line. You get your layout just right first, and then you bring in a tool like a super sharp chisel to do the actual cutting.
Now, when it comes to saws, one size definitely does not fit all. It's all about the grain, the direction the wood fibers are running. A rip saw has teeth shaped like tiny chisels, designed to scoop out wood while cutting along the grain. But a crosscut saw, its teeth are like little knives, made to slice cleanly across those wood fibers. If you use the wrong one, you're just going to have a bad time.
A saw is always going to leave a rough surface. To get that perfectly flat, glass-smooth finish that you can't help but touch, you need a plane.
These tools use a razor-sharp blade to shave off paper-thin curls of wood, turning a rough board into something truly finished.
Making holes is another one of those fundamental jobs, and you've got choices. A hand drill gives you amazing control for small, delicate work. But when you need raw power, and you need to drill a perfectly straight hole in the exact same spot over and over again, you bring in a motorized drill press.
And of course, you've got the big shop power tools. A machine like a table saw is an absolute game changer. It's not just about being fast, it's about making perfectly straight, repeatable cuts with a level of accuracy that's just, well, it's almost impossible to achieve by hand consistently.
And finally, just look at the creative powerhouse that is the router. Just by swapping out these little cutting bits, you can create all sorts of decorative edges, cut grooves, and even make some really complex joints. It might just be the most versatile tool in the entire shop.
So we've gone from a raw log to milled lumber, from simple screws to intricate joints, and from basic hand tools to powerful machines. The whole process is really a conversation between the woodworker and the wood itself. So the only real question left is, what will you create?
Hey, thanks so much for joining me on this tour through the fundamentals of woodworking. Just a reminder that all the incredible information we went through came from the comprehensive work of Dr. Sameh Tawfik.